four friends down for life until one slip off caused their friendship to change forever. Today, we look back on Juice. Hey, welcome to another exciting edition of the Look Back. I am your host and the necromancer of film, Joshua Klein, and always joined by my assistant, by my co-host, my brother, Frankie Bayo. Frankie, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Frank B. You know who's in the building? Ready to watch another movie? I'm excited for this one. I chose this one. Sky.
Actually, I chose this one.
Oh, that's right. No, you did. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah,
I chose this one.
Right.
You picked Shaft and New Jack City, and I was like, there's a movie we got to add in here, and that's called Juice. True. Yes, folks. Today we are going over the 1992 film Juice, directed by Eric Dickerson. He was also written by Eric Dickerson, starring Omar Epps and Tupac Shakur. Wow. I have watched this film previously at one time. I do not remember when I did, but I know I did. And the one thing I could remember from the movie is how scary Tupac is at the end of the movie. And then watching it again, I was just like, yo, Tupac or Bishop is fucking scary.
Dude, yeah, no, he's and it's the grin because like Tupac is like, you know, handsome dude, but like it's the sinisterness behind it. He's like every time he showed up and would smile or like just give somebody a look without like moving, dude, terrifying.
I mean, most people know Tupac because he's a fantastic rapper during the 90s. But when this movie came out, he wasn't, Tupac yet. Like he had like Me Against the World, one of my favorite albums, didn't come out until 95, and his death was 96. So this is 5 years before his death. And the interesting about it, he actually went to acting school in high school. He went to an art school. So like he was a thespian per se before this film. So like, but this is his first feature film. And wow. When we get to this, I have a lot to say about Tupac's performance and Omar Epps. I know Omar Epps from House. That's the first time I ever saw him was House. I know he's in Love and Basketball.
I saw him from Love and Basketball. Right. Yeah. He actually fills in for Wesley Snipes in the second Major League too. Yep. That's actually my first introduction to him because I remember seeing that movie as a kid. But sorry.
I can't wait to discuss the film, especially since, we recently talked about Shaft and New Jack City. I think if you've seen those episodes, be prepared because there's a lot of comparisons are going to be made in this episode based on those two films with this film because like New Jack City came out a year prior to this, there are some similarities. I mean, and all three are set in New York in three different time periods. So you really get a different feel of New York in three different views. And the interesting part of all three films, they're all from a Black perspective. So I think it's another reason why we should compare the three. Okay? It's kind of a little trilogy going on in here. Look back style. So before we get deeper in this film, because I think this is going to be a fun conversation about this film and revisiting the other two films. But Frankie, before we do that, let's get a plot so people know what we're going to be talking about.
All right. So today's movie is Juice, made in 91, released in 1992. This movie stars Tupac Shakur, Omar Epps, Khalil Kain, Jermaine Hopkins, Samuel L. Jackson, and Queen Latifah. The film follows four young men, like you said, teenagers actually, that get caught up in the pursuit of power and happiness. It's, again, like I said, released in 92. The film actually was reviewed really well for its overall acting and plot. Also some unique elements that we're going to get into during the movie and in some of the twists and obviously the soundtrack. This is the second movie in a row, by the way, that we've watched where the soundtrack actually arguably did better than the movie. Like
that's really,
you know what I'm saying? Like, because I mean, just being completely real, like only I think it's like 5 albums per year, like or I want to say per decade, but I'll have to check the stats. But to get certified as diamond, I know that platinum is the second one, and then it's either gold and silver after that. This one went gold, and then New Jack City's actually went platinum.
Mm.
So these soundtracks were like, especially because it was the '90s, so like movie soundtracks was kind of a big thing. But that was something I personally found interesting. But yeah, overall, I thought your summary was really, really good, really spot on. The biggest stars in this movie that we did not talk about, obviously Samuel Jackson is a side character, and then in the '90s, Jermaine Hopkins and Khalil Kain were actually very big actors. They just, by the time like you and I were young, their careers had pretty much waned out. So I just want to
Oh,
make
they're the one that plays Ramirez. Not Ramirez. It's Raheem and Steele.
yeah.
Jeremy
So,
Hopkins looked familiar to me.
yeah, he's in a. I know he was one of the friends on the Wayans brothers. That's where I was introduced to him. But he was in Lean on Me. He was in a couple of other movies, decent movies in the '90s. Honestly, he went on a little run himself. Him and Omar Epps, they were in a couple of decent films. So yeah, no, they're guys I grew up actually understand like seeing their movies and understanding who they were. So I was actually excited to see them in.
Oh, I actually, looking at his titles, I had seen none of his films. Just Juice. That's why he's familiar. Juice. Okay, cool.
You never seen
No, that's probably something we'll have to lead. I know it's one. It came during the time where you had a bunch of. Okay, there's a certain amount of movies that like came out during this time where it's like inner city drama in a school, and a teacher like gets him to straightens him out, and it's Morgan Freeman. So it's like that's all I know. Morgan Freeman's in the film. He's a hard ass, and stuff like that. Like I've seen like there's other films like it, except for but later like that was in the 80s. Like later on, there's white savior films where a white teacher comes in and like and saves the African American kids and their problems in the urban area.
Don't get me started, dog.
Well, we'll get there if we ever watch a film that's like that. But this film, and it's so great that this is the year of 50 years of hip hop, and how this movie is soundtracked by hip hop. It has a hip hop icon in Tupac. Queen Latifah is a hip hop icon, and how the film starts with the song "Juice," while we're getting already some characterization of our main character, Quincy or GQ, who wants to be inspired to be a DJ during the time where hip hop was not as mainstream as it is now, kind of still a little underground. We're talking about, this is probably set in 91, maybe 1990, 1991. Yeah, so, so hip hop hasn't really blew up per se. It's still only listened to predominantly black people, African Americans, I would say. So I think it's a very good way. And it does something that, we've seen this before, establishing where we're at. Okay. Shots of New York while, Q's DJing. And we're kind of getting a feel already. We're getting a feel what this film is going to be like a Fistful of Dollars. That opening title scene gave you exactly how the movie's going to feel right away. New Jack City, same way with the, telling what's going on and kind of the beat. Okay. Shaft with him walking, like the importance of an opening shot to establish mood, kind of motifs going on here with hip hop music being a big motif here. And kind of how the city looks, especially when we get to, I think they're in the Bronx, right? They're in the Bronx or Harlem.
I think it's Harlem.
Okay, so it's once again we're in Harlem again. Like this is another film where we're in Harlem, and seeing how and especially since this is the George W.H. Bush era, not Ronald Reagan, where the 1970s, I think that was the Ford era, and this is now and we watched New Jack City, then that was supposed to be the Ronald Reagan era and crack, and now here is Ronald Reagan's homeboy, George Bush Sr., and how his administration and how it's different with urban cities, and over policing is a theme here.
Yep.
And I think the reason why our character Tupac Bishop goes crazy is because of this. Now, I also before we get to the introduction to our four characters, our four homeboys, our crew, the wrecking crew, what did you think about seeing another film where you see a bunch of New York shots and just kind of the music, because I'm a big hip hop head. Okay, I was already immediately into the film. I was like, this is, and you know what? This could date the film, like Shaft with Isaac Hayes and New Jack City. But I think that this is, especially since the main character is a DJ, it feels authentic.
Yeah.
Authentic.
Yeah. I mean, I loved like the opening scenes. Number one, I like the way that they always set up New York City as this kind of like,
Yeah.
it's a big city, but like it's got such a unique culture. It's like hard to describe. Like, I mean, it's always looks dirty as hell in movies.
Yes.
More importantly, it's like the people there are just like, we got places to be. We're walking. We're grooving. We got stuff to do. Like, this is our life every day. Like, the fact that they never went to school. And I'm thinking, like, in other towns, eventually the cops are going to catch you, right? Like, even in Houston, to some extent, like where I'm at, they'll find you. But like New York, you can literally be in alleyways that go for like blocks,
Yeah.
disappear. Like, that's the scariest thing to me. And they were just running the streets. You know what I'm saying? And I loved that setup. Sorry, I love that setup. I really did.
Okay, so right away I can tell the difference between New Jack City and this film. And the difference between Mario Van Peebles directing and Dickerson's directing. Dickerson reminds me a lot of, he likes Spike Lee. And Spike Lee was a prominent African-American director who made Do the Right Thing. And the opening where we're meeting the kids and their parents and the close-up where the camera is like looking above, I'm like, man, this is such a Spike Lee feel. Someone like, and especially Samuel Jackson was in Do the Right Thing. I was like, wow, this is taking a lot from getting inspiration from Spike Lee, because when Q is DJing, there's a big picture of Malcolm X. And the thing is like there is two different philosophies about how to survive in the ghetto. One from Q's vision, Q's point of view, and Bishop's point of view, which you could see like those are our Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, okay, kind of thing. How we should act in this area, because yes, you're talking about how big the area is. Because of the cop presence, it's very secluded. Imprisonment. I feel like they are imprisoned in their neighborhood, kind of. They're constantly on edge. They're always on edge. And
man, honestly,
and it's interesting because like we get to meet the kids and their parents. We don't. The parents are not a key figure in this movie, but the fact that we got to see how their family relationship is kind of tells you how the kids turned out a little bit. I mean, when we meet Bishop Tupac and he's talking to he's like getting up and his grandma's cooking him breakfast and he's like, hey, tell your dad that your breakfast is ready. And we see the scene of this guy just sitting, just staring. And it's just like, what the fuck is this about? And like Bishop is like, nah, I don't want to talk to you, and continues moving on. Where you have Steele, has his brother, like they share a bunk bed. I mean, they're too big to be in this bunk bed, but since they live in New York and they're probably poor, and then that's probably like they've outgrown this bunk bed, but this is all they have right now.
Yeah, no, it sets it very well. I thought that each situation, and the one guy with the kid, that was wild.
Yes, Raheem. Yes,
like sophomores. So they're like what, 15?
Okay. But when we get to who Q is messing with, I'm just like, yo. I don't know. Actually, no. I don't think they ever say how old they are.
I want to say that it says they're great at some point.
Well, because they're not in school, so it's just like you kind of take them as men. They're young, but you're not taking them as I
mean, it just says teenagers, so I'm gonna say like 17. We'll say 17. Like they're probably juniors and seniors, like because they're able to cut school, so clearly like they've made it a decent distance. But yeah, no, it's set up well that they're like teenagers. Appreciated that it showed every single person with their background, like you said, but I also appreciated how it showed how their personalities kind of meshed with their families, and then it showed again how their personalities meshed with the friend group. Because with Q, like at home, doesn't really say much. You know what I'm saying? And like some people are like that, like with their families. Like my family, we're not big talkers, but like we're just like we'll hug you and kind of But when he gets with the friends, he's like the polar opposite. He's talkative. He's like I don't want to say like the life of the party, but like he's kind of the pusher man in the group. Like he's always being funny, like this, that, and the third. And then the one brother is, or not brother, but friend, like that you said, like he's like providing for everybody. Like he got them that food, even though it's probably gross. But
Yeah,
like,
Steel. Yeah, Steel.
you know what I'm saying? And then the one guy was like trying to be like the more of a leader and assertive because he's like a dad. And then Q is just always kind of in the middle because he's kind of
Yes.
in the middle in his family too. But he also is like, I feel like he overcomes a lot, like subtly.
Right. It feels like these are kids who met in school and they just kind of click. There's a combined love for hip hop. Like Steele always has a boombox. He's walking out with his books. He fucking ditches the book, grabs his boombox. Q is like he's not interacting in the world around him. Okay, because he always has his headphones on and listen to music. So it kind of distracts him from the horrors and the violence that goes around him. Okay, when we get to the point where like how prevalently violence is in this neighborhood. Like it's almost like you throw a rock and there's violence, you know.
Horrible, man.
Bishop is kind of a loner, right? But has love. Like I don't feel like he gets a lot of love, and the love that he gets is from his crew. And when we get to, and then you have Raheem, who's like a dad. But he's trying to grow up. He's trying to grow up. He's trying to provide for his family. He needs to make money. He knows that with this kid, I need to make money to provide for my kid. And my baby mama doesn't want to be with me because I don't have any money. And I think that is a push to what is going to go on in the second act, where things really turn the fan here with the desperate of getting money and the prevalence of violence. You know, but when Bishop is introduced to the Puerto Rican gang, you can see that he's a talker. He is not afraid to speak his mind. And he will even like pump out his chest more with his boys being there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because he knows he's protected. He's pushed against the wall and he's like, I'm not scared of nobody. But then there's a line about him being previously in jail. And the rumor that he's, was gay in jail. And that really sets him off. Like, I know that right now that doesn't seem very progressive. But I mean, you tell a straight man that, I heard you were in jail, being homo. I mean, being a sissy. I mean, that's like, oh, like you got to show your manhood in this place because it's do or die.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the 90s. It's also a thing like it's homophobia. I mean, that was a big thing during this time period. Like, I mean, I'm not going to get into the cultural parts of it, but that was a thing back then. That's what I will say. Well,
because the next scene after like the crew helps Bishop shoo away the Puerto Rican gang. Steele's talking about he had sex last night with this Donna girl, and the guys are teasing him because they're like, "Well, Donna used to be Donald."
I forgot about that. Yeah,
right. Because like Steele's like, "I got laid," and he said this Donna is like, "You did?" Because Donna used to be Donald.
Donald,
now,
yeah, voice all deep, Donald.
Donald, yeah. And he's like, "Oh, man, like that's why you stopped lying because like that's how they knew Steele was lying because like you didn't like you would have known you didn't have sex with Donna." But I know that scene. Oh, that scene is kind of hard to watch because you're just kind of like, wow, they're describing a trans woman.
Yeah, this is horrible,
but I mean, like this is the early '90s. The transitioning is so different than what it is now. And it just, and he was lying. It's not like they were making fun of him for sleeping with a trans woman. Like he was lying, thinking he slept with a woman. Like, no, that person, is trans. It's not a dude. It was a dude, but not anymore. So I thought that was funny. It just shows the camaraderie because they're laughing and joking. Ha ha ha. And then we get what they do. They don't go to school. They go and hang out and hustle. They go to this arcade that's run by this little shop a pool hall that's run by Samuel Jackson. It's like kind of a cameo. He doesn't really have much. He has one scene where he actually talks. But this is where they hustle. It's where they hustle. Like Steele's really good at Street Fighter 2, I think. And he will play people to get money. So it's always the drive for this crew to get money. They understand that going to school does not bring them money. So they said, fuck school. To make it in this world, to make it in this area, we got to make money now.
They ditched the books and hit the streets. That's
Hmm.
a line in the movie. And I think that that hits home too because that was something that was really going on because this is post so this is New York post crack epidemic,
Yeah.
right? So this is also at the time where yes, there's over policing because of that, but also like the police are not looking for like I don't want to say they're not looking for kids, but like it's one of those like No Child Left Behind kind of failed them. I mean, it wasn't a thing then, but you
No.
know, like this is part of why No Child Left Behind is a thing. So because like you could just cut school and they're just like, all right, you don't have to be here,
No.
but at the
And
same time,
especially since you know how schooling works and why their schooling is so bad, because like schools are run by, the way schools are funded is through taxes for the people that lived in the neighborhood of that school. Now, if that neighborhood is poor, that school is gonna be poor. I mean, that means the books are gonna be outdated. The teachers are not gonna be well paid. I mean, like, there's a lot of problems going on. It's like the situation that these kids are around are failing them. They're
yep.
failing them, and they're trying. This reminds me back to Shaft a little bit and Nino Brown a little bit. You got to find your hustle to get out, to make it, to get out of this. Or like, in Shaft, guy was a Black Panther to get out. Shaft became a private detective. Jones became a gangster. Like that's the way to do it. And these kids are trying to find their way through a city and an America that does not care about them, doesn't support their future. Where like Q wants to be a DJ, but his mom is like, look, you could go to be a mechanic, you make good money, but like that is hard back-breaking work that like Q's like, I have my other talents there.
Man, it's interesting that like every movie that we watch, like with or not every, but like movies from this time period with the parent interactions, I thought that was really fitting for the time period. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
every parent, like I mean, for that, not even time period, for that age. Because like I think put back to myself at like 16, like my dad was like, hey, like you need to set yourself up with a career right now. Like you're 16, so there's only so much you can do, but at least like having stuff to put on a resume when you need it is like key. And I was always like, Pop, like I don't like I'm gonna get a summer job, make some money, and then not work during school because I'm playing football. Like that's what I wanted to do. But in his eyes, like he's just looking out for what's best. And the mom was doing the right thing, like because I mean you gotta think, bro, the odds of you making it in music, like one in especially then. I mean now it's probably crazier because you got SoundCloud with a bajillion rappers on there. But
Yes.
man, for like what he wanted to do, like granted he was able to do the competition, which later in the movie, but still like the mom was being logical. She's like, hey, like the odds of this working out, like there's like a difference between like a dream and like actually like something that's attainable sometimes. And that's like where he was at.
Right. Well, we seeing,
You can be
but
good, not the best.
but okay. So, but in this pool hall scene, Q uses his DJ as his hustle.
Mm-hmm.
He sells his mixtapes for parties introduced to get laid because there's a guy who's like, hey, $10. He's like, nah, recession, $15. And he's like, didn't I help you get laid? Like, didn't I help you that girl get laid? And like, yeah. So it's like, all right, he is local. Like his music, the way he's mixing and cutting it up, scratching and everything, is popular within the locals. So it's just like, all right, because he's perfecting his craft because it's like he's hustling all day and then going home and fucking going at it. Boom, chicka chicka boom, just. And I think that's the difference between ambition, which another character has an ambition. Bishop has ambition, but differently. He sees the only way to do anything around in this neighborhood is through violence. Being like, making like, not being afraid of anybody, like walking out there and everybody is fear of you. Fear. Because he says like they're afraid of cops. He sees the power of the police around them, how fear works, Bishop is kind of already like, he's already having signs of mental health issues that is being ignored, which is something that's still relevant today with Black men's health is their mental health. And, and if he's already been to prison, he's already been secluded and already felt the fear and the power of the police. And when he gets out, he's still in, and he still has to act like those rules where like, you got to be the toughest guy. You got to hit the biggest boy. Like, you got to be hard all the time.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put that. Yeah, mental health is something that like this movie has a couple of instances of it, Like you see somebody, we see a homeless guy later. You see the friend that robs the bank. Clearly, his mental health is messed up. But I thought Bishop's was like the most deep because like you could tell it was like he just needed somebody to talk to him and guide him in the right direction. He was not talking to anyone at home.
Mm-mm.
Like in like we go back to like that opening scene is really telling because of how some of the stuff spirals out of control. Because if you think about it, he was opening up to his friends, being like, "I'm mad. Like we stand down to everybody. We let people mess with us," which is true. Like, yeah, you have a right to be upset about that, but then like you have to think like you have to have a like I want to say a dad in this case that's willing to talk to you, but he didn't, and that's where the mental health gets you in trouble, which leads to all the other issues they already have. They're in the inner city. You can't be acting wild because then there's police everywhere who do one
Yep.
thing. Boom.
Right.
He's
So I mean,
a slippery slope. The ball is rolling for him the whole time.
going back to hip hop, think about this.
Yeah.
Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. That is like the overall theme of this inner city. It's like they're being pushed by this violence and despair and fear like all the time. It's like when they're in the pool hall, the cops come, and then it's not like just one cop. It's like swarm of cops, and they know if they get caught like that, like you don't know what's gonna like. They can't trust the police. Seal only gets caught because he wants to keep playing this game. But like they're constantly running from the police. They're constantly running from police. They're running from the Puerto Rican game. You know, just it's always constant running. Which when and then when Q is getting cigarettes, he goes into this bar, right, to get cigarettes.
Is it a bar or a rest? I thought it was a corner store.
Okay, it kind of looked like a bar because there was a bar stool, everything. And it kind of looked like he was kind of was sneaking in to make sure he wasn't getting noticed. That's.
I'll have to go back. I could have swore it was a corner store, but you probably saw it better than I.
No. So like when because the guy like, hey man, when'd you get out? Yeah, I'm on my parole. That's in a bar.
Oh, okay.
The cornerstone where they rob earlier is when the Puerto Rican game is messing with Bishop.
Yeah, and
he comes out with a gun to scare him away. Like get off, get away from my store. Yes. So when Q goes in there, he has like, here's a guy sticking up. He's like, hey Q, you want a piece of this? He's like, no, I don't. And like just kind of like gets out of that situation. Right. And Bishop's the one's like, nah, man, let's go in there. Let's get our lick. Let's get it. It's going to be so fucking quick. We're going to get some money, man. Because it's what it's all about. It's about getting quick money.
Yes.
Like, fuck all, like, yeah, they're robbing the place, but like getting money. And that's the difference between Q and Bishop. Q is not afraid to go that violent route to get what they need.
That's an interesting way to put it, brother.
Because when they go, because the next scene after that situation is them at Steele's house getting food. And Bishop is watching a movie, a gangster film. I don't even know if this is a real gangster film. It looks legit as fuck. Where the gangster's like beating up cops. And he's like, yeah, get him. And like him going out in the blaze of glory where he's fucking killing people mercifully. And when he's burning, like in the scene, he's burning alive. And he goes, I'm on top of the world. Which is like, they couldn't get the rights of Scarface, so they couldn't say the world is mine. So they got to say, I'm the top of the world. Not like, I'm talking about the old school Scarface, because it reminded me a lot of that. I'm the top of the world, mom. And that's like, Bishop wants to be that. He says, that is a man that took control of his own destiny. He said, fuck the rules. I'm in control. I'm the real man here. I don't need to follow any rules. Like, he wants to be a cowboy. He wants to be a gangster. Like, fuck these rules. They're suppressive of me anyways. They're pushing me to a point of this rage. Because Bishop is rageful. Rageful. Now, listen, like, I like this scene. I think a little bit Bishop, like, I think Tupac's overacting a little bit. Because he's like, it almost feels like Q and him were about to fight right in there. I'm like, ooh, I wish they would have toned this down a little bit and built towards this rage between these two friends, because it's already like it puts them against them. Because you find out that on the news, the guy who stuck up the bar got shot by cops. Like he died by cops. Like he robbed. Like he didn't like. Yeah, he got some money, but he didn't. He died. Like he died anyways. Like that was like that could have been us. If we would have helped, we would have been shot. They would have been 5 dead brothers instead of 1. And that's Q's point. Like, we don't need to do this. I want to live. Like, but it looks like Tupac's like Bishop is looking at it like, dude, we're already dead. We are already dead. Like the way we're living, we're dying. I'm just not gonna die I'm not gonna die on somebody else's terms. I'm gonna die on my own terms.
Yeah. I I think that number one, the Blizzard scene, I've
That's
always
his
thought
name.
it was like a joke, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
yeah, that was his name, Blizzard, right?
Yes, it was.
I almost called him. I literally was like, it's either
They
Blizzard or some.
they
It's not
they
a
called
B.
him Blizz. They called him Blizz, but his name is
Yeah,
Blizzard or Blizz. Yeah.
yeah, because in the rant, he's like, you got to fight and die for it, like Blizzard did, and I was just like, the number of people I've heard with that mentality, you know what I'm saying? Like, especially growing up where I grew up, like that was the thing, you know, and it's like, yo, it's like I'm gonna go out for mine, and I'm like, my parents were the opposite. My mom and dad were like, listen, there are situations that you like that, yeah, it's worth dying over, but they're like not situations where like people are willing to. And like in this movie, it's like, why would you go rob somebody? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the logic behind it never made like it makes sense to them because they're hustling. But like to me, as somebody that grew up away from that, I'm like, that's the worst way to live, in my opinion. But
Right.
that's the thing. Like in this movie, it shows that's the only thing they know. Like everybody around them is really hustling in some way. Like they
Yes.
even go to school and they're like, "Yo, our teachers are even hustling us." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I see it. Like that makes sense."
I mean, what
It
job?
makes sense.
What job? What job do they have? Look at the neighborhood they're walking in. It's
Exactly.
oh, I love how they're walking to the park and they see a white guy, and the white guy's like, oh, like so scared of the stereotypical black guy, like oh, black people are bad, and like you can see this white business guy just kind of like give
No,
himself space.
oh,
It's just
geez.
like, oh Jesus. So like people are
Oh, God.
like normal people are scared of four black men, and just like
Yeah.
there's this constant like division going on here. So when you see him in their neighborhood, it's always grimy, it's dirty, and there's violence all the time. So it's like that will wear on your brain how often you see that. And that's like you kind of so when okay, because I want to hold on to it because they do a robbery, but it's very important because it's interesting. Like because Bishop, like, we should have gone in there, we should have robbed, right? And then, Q's like, hey, like, I think the next day, Raheem's like, hey, there's a meeting at the basketball court. He's like, oh, Q mentioned, like, hey, I want a DJ. Like, there's a DJ contest I want to do. I want to do it. I think I'm really good. And because there's a meeting, he's like, I can't go. I have to do an audition. And you're like, all right, we'll just wait. But it looked like they already made the decision without Q.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to fucking do this. They're going to rob the Cuban guy at the store. And they're like, look, it'll be quick, 3 minutes. And now you doing the DJ gives us an alibi because you're going to be there cutting it up, And it felt great that, when Queen Latifah shows up and then, like, really disses the guy on his scratch, like, you suck, you sorry. It's just like, all right, she knows what she's talking about. And we see that, see him listen to the music and her just getting into it. I'm like, all right, yeah. It does sound pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, we know that here's his out. Here's his out from the ghetto. Here's his out. His chance to be something that's not what he is now. Like, he's about to make a name for himself.
He's gonna make it out of the hood.
Which we've seen. We've seen many rappers who lived this lifestyle, became rappers, and got out of this lifestyle because they were able to rap.
Yeah, I mean,
And the way that they steal the vinyls for him is that they go to a record store and then a guy has to hit on the clerk while they steal. And this girl could be busted. But this girl, for example, had a gold tooth right there. And she would, I mean, and the fact that he just kind of like, yeah, bye. And it couldn't do anything, like stealing. So that I know stealing is harmless, but it's another, like, them using crime to get what they want. Like, what's the difference between them stealing from the convenience store than the vinyl store? Like, it's the same concept, except for when they rob the convenience store, they use it through an act of violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The robbery, honestly, was going really smooth, in my opinion. I mean,
hold on that.
Right.
Hold on. I want to get there because we need to, because there's a character that we kind of hear, because I think the movie changes is when we're like, so, Q's excited. Like, he's like, yeah, man, I got I'm going to move on the next night. And they're like, hey, we're going to do this robbery. It's going to be quick. Bishop, and it feels like Bishop is the one because the importance of the gun. It really changes every aspect of this whole movie. Of how did these kids get a gun, and how that's the juice. Like the movie's called Juice. It's like, all right, the juice, the weapon. Like you really get that weapon gives you power, gives you status. That gun, you can you can really control a man's destiny. You can kill a person on your terms. And when the gun's introduced from Raheem, and he got it from Sweets, Miss Sweets, who's kind of a local gangster in the film and in the place, like kind of like a Nino Brown kind of character, but not like she's like we see her like one other time when Q buys a gun. But when you see that gun, it's like Bishop's eyes was like, there it is. There's the thing I've been looking for, the power that I've been searching for, the one that will enact fear.
Yep.
Because that's fear equals power to Bishop. That's why he's like, I'll hold the gun. Now, that was a mistake. You don't give a guy who's crazy a gun.
Nope. You give it to the most sane person, logical person in your group, which would probably be Q. But
no, I wouldn't give it to Q because I think Q wouldn't want to be involved with that because that's actually more of a crime if they get caught. I mean, I think Raheem was the one who bought it. Raheem should be responsible since he is the guy who's the more responsible character trying to be dad-like. And this is kind of his idea. He's the one that's kind of been pushing this. And it feels like they've always talked about hitting a lick, as it's called, doing a robbery. But prior to that, I want to get to this character that it threw me a loop. So Q is actually dating somebody.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wow.
Yolanda.
Yeah.
Who has her own home, was previously married because her ex-husband's in the house, and he kind of like the ex-husband remind me of a self-hating black man.
Why?
Because he's making fun of Q. Oh, like my name is Q. Oh, just Q. Quinn. Like, oh, like what happened to the normal ass names? It's kind of like how different the youth is because he's like, it's kind of a character who's lived in white society. Like he dresses up higher. He's not the same as Q. He looks down on him. Oh, the rippy rap and stuff like that. Like he's really putting him down. So I feel like he's he's hating his own kind. Well,
yeah, I mean, that is a good example of that. I also think it's a little jealousy because he's clearly
that too
understands what's going on.
Oh yeah.
I mean, okay, I'll let you describe the situation, then I'll make the point I was going to make. So go ahead.
I mean, it's like
you make your point.
I mean, like it was interesting to see another black character because we've seen other black characters being like together and like being in the situation. Like this character, where Yolanda lives at, feels so separate from where he's at. Yeah. You know, Yolanda has her life together. She's a nurse. And this is like the difference between what Bishop is doing and what Q's doing. Q's hanging with people of higher status that is not from the ghetto. Okay. Or I don't know exactly where Yolanda's at, but based on where Yolanda's like, she's a single woman at the time who lives on her own. I mean, like that's wow. I mean, like, and her apartment looks nice. They're eating fancy, drinking wine with dinner. I mean, I took it that they never explained how they met, and I can only think of is that they met while he was DJing. That was the only way.
I think so, yeah.
So it's like he already knows that the DJ life is giving him opportunities and stuff that he wasn't getting previously. So as you move up to a different rank, like if I was to get money and I was interacting with other rich white people, which I did when I went to Catholic school, I was hanging out with more upper class white people. Then they kind of look down on poor people. They do. And they will make fun of you. And I got made fun of a lot. I got picked on in Catholic school. I mean, one, because I was hanging out with the black kids, because that's who I am. Number two, I acted a little different than them. I didn't come from privilege. Not saying that Yolanda and her boyfriend came from privilege. They are more privileged in a sense of they have money and they're doing well for themselves. Yeah. Where it's what Q wants. Q sees what happens when you grind for your passions.
Yep. I think it was more of like, not more of, but like it was a big class thing. But like with like I mean, Catholic school, number one, is you get an array of people. And then number two, I honestly think Q is more of a like, not an aspirational dreamer, but like one of those people. He tries to surround himself with people he wants to be like, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, he's got his friend group, but like even in the movie, like he was talking, tended to talk to the older people. Like obviously
Yes.
doing the TV thing, but also like I want to say he has a conversation with Samuel L. Jackson's character at some point.
Later in the film where Bishop is lying about him.
Yeah, and then I know, I mean, obviously the scene with his mom, and there's one other person I'm blanking that, but he tends to talk to the older people versus what it sounds like with Bishop, either talking to nobody or people that don't have the right mindset. And I
Nope.
think that is something that is character wise like pretty big for both of them. So
Yes. So now we're getting to the point where, you know, Q goes along because he's, you know, he doesn't want to. Those are his boys, you know, those are your friends. You ride or die. So if they want to do this, he's agreeing to do it. So they go out do the DJ thing, and he goes up against the previous winner, okay, and he beats him. And you're like, wow, like this is gonna jump Q to like fucking stardom. Like he's gonna win this competition, right? But then it's time to do the job. And yeah, the job goes well. I mean, like the cops come in 3 minutes and they get the money. And I think Q's stealing something else. I think it's some chapstick or whatever. And it's just like they're about to get away, you know? And Bishop decides to kill that old man. Because previously he said he wanted to kill that old man. So he took a shot him in the head. And now the robbery becomes a murder. So now they fucking run. Now we're in a nightmare. Okay, now we're in a situation where the movie turns drastically to a whole different thing, a mood shift. Whoop. And I think it's correct because when something like that, like so randomly happens, life like becomes just unfathomable, uncontrollable. When you use violence, there's no way of getting out of it or getting away from it.
yeah.
So they're running and they're running and running. And then they go to this little place, and this is where Raheem and Bishop are giving an argument, and Bishop kills Raheem. And you're just like, this has equally just got worse. Like this has got like fucked. Like now they can't get out of it. Now they're like sooner or later they know they're gonna get fucked. So now this is the juice because Tupac has now tasted the power, the gun. And he's like, I warned him. And he's pointing the gun at Steele, and he's pointing the gun at Q, being like, listen, like, you're next if you don't go along with it. It's like, look, what happened? What's happened? Let's fucking move on. Yep. You know? I told him.
He made a move. And I was like, no, he didn't.
Oh, my God, dude.
He's like, don't shoot me, please. I was like, oh, my. Dude, the sound of him crying, like begging for his life at the end, and it's to just, oh, man. To still get shot. Like the first time I saw it when I was like a teenager, I was like dude, like, because I thought it was like a coming of age story where like somebody gets shot, and you know it's like typical hood story. This was not that.
No. I mean, this. I mean, it flips on a dime, and all of a sudden now we're in a horror film because they do like go back to the DJ place. And the cops only pick him up because they know that Raheem hangs out with them. And when I love the interrogation scene because there's a lot of like cops like talking like side by side. Then you get a close up of the cops, and we can see how Bishop has committed 2 murders, and the motherfucker is calm as hell. Man, he's just like, yeah, cops are smoking cigarettes, joking, having a good time. The streets, this community, this prison has broken him to where he doesn't like really fathom what he does.
Yep.
Well, what he done? What he's done? Like he has done something fucked up because now he's like, when they're done, they're gonna be boys. And buddy, Q's like avoiding Bishop. Like, hey, like, nope, I ain't hanging out with him.
He decides to go to school thinking his friend.
Yeah, and he can't remember his locker code, and he's like, guys, like, are you fucking serious? Like, shut up. And I love the scene where it's like, I know it's very it's overdone now. Like something closed and the killer or whatever is like right there.
Yeah.
But when Q closes it and it's Bishop, just that look, you're just like, fuck. He's like, I just gotta see what's up, see how you were doing. I'm just prior to that though is when Raheem's funeral, or like viewing, and fucking Bishop shows up, acting like nothing's wrong. And he's like, man, I wish I like, and saying that Raheem was my brother. I loved him. I cared about him. And it was like, if I could, there's anything I could do, I'm just like, dude, you are the murderer. Like, how can you justify what you just did? But he's justifying it because it's like, this is how, like, this is how it's how we do it in here. Like, it's the only way to survive here. It's kill or be killed.
Dude, the scene of him hugging the mom. Like where he's just like, but he's looking at Omar, and Omar Epps is like,
eyes are so big. Eyes are so big. And you can just tell because like, and then Steele's also trying to avoid him, and then Steele's on his way home, and fucking Bishop just pops out of nowhere and goes, hi. I was like, yo, Jesus Christ. And he takes him to the pool hall, and I just like, and then Steele's like calling Omar. I was like, this motherfucker's like hearing me. I'm fucking scared. Because even Steele's like, this motherfucker's going to kill me too.
Well, yeah, and he was like, what do you want from me? Nothing. Bow. And I was like, oh,
how and Bishop is so like the juice. Like you can almost say like steroids, right? Juice. Like the rage. The rage is just he's overcome with the rage and the fear that like he is over, like he's just so consumed by power that he needs to stuff out people that would rat on him. So he has to take out Steele. He thinks he killed Steele. And I love how he goes to Samuel L. Jackson and tells him that it is Q who did the murders and that he's after Bishop, because Bishop is now thinking about, like, why is Bishop doing this? Well, we'll find out later when they get face to face, self-defense. Like, that's how he's going to call it. And like, hey, self-defense. That's how I'm going to go away with this. I'm like, hey, it works for some people.
Oh my God. I hated that. Like, I hated that was like the logic, but I appreciate how everything played out in the end.
Right. He's crazy. Like, he's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, I hate when that's always like the cop out, and I'm going to plead insanity. It's like,
I mean, he could have.
It's like, I get it, but that's not the option you're going to get in this movie. At least if it was my movie, be like, hey, you could say that.
Yeah. And I love it. Like, it's like Omar has to face him. Like, he knows it. And he buys a gun from, Miss Sweets. Yep. And it's an older black lady who actually knows his mom. And it's like, gets this tiny little gun. And then he decides to throw it into the water. He's like, look, I'm not like Bishop. I will not revert to violence. Like that's like, we're talking about choosing your destiny. This is Q choosing his destiny, choosing it, right? And so when Q goes and sees Samuel Jackson's character and tells like, hey, tell Bishop I'll be here, meet me at midnight, and he's sitting there waiting, and fucking Bishop comes out from the darkness. I was just like, this dude is full on Michael Myers in this bitch, like just. I was like, oh, dude,
he showed up like for like super villain, like I don't want to say like Thanos because that's just a cop out nowadays, but like he literally for real like just has that like jump scare like every time you get introduced to it or reintroduced to him, and he looks like even more sinister. Like the first couple times he's like straight up, but kind of as the movie goes on, his like even his like body language kind of hunches over a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Like, I forgot an important scene here.
Yeah,
go back a little bit.
Yeah, but yeah, his body like kind of starts to hunch over. I'm like, ugh.
I know. So prior to that, the reason why Bishop turned on his crew is because the crew turned on him first. Yeah. Okay. So we get a revisit of the Puerto Rican gang going after Bishop because Bishop told the cops that, it could have been the Puerto Ricans. They kind of had problems with this dude. They kind of just get the sin off of him. So they're about to beating him up again, right? And he sees Q and Steele coming down the street like they did prior in the opener, except for Q goes, hey, come on, and pulls back. That's when Bishop goes, fuck them all. I only need myself. He's like, fuck you. I ain't got a crew. I don't need a crew. I don't need you guys. And that's when he starts going after these guys because he's just like, now I don't need them. I thought we were boys, and if they go down, I go down. Like, nope, not if I take them down first. So then all that stuff we talked about happens, and then the most insane scene, which is probably my favorite scene, is that they go like so. Q is like running because he doesn't have a gun, so he's running for his life, and I understand that Bishop is a bad aim because like he never really had a gun before, so of course it's like, but he does get Q in the arm in the arm, and he goes into a building and gets on the elevator. He thinks, oh fuck, I'm safe, and then Bishop comes in the elevator, and the elevator door is at Bishop's back, and he's facing Q. Q's like, what are you gonna do? Shoot me in the elevator? Pow! I was like, dude, there's a few more people. Bishop doesn't fucking care. He doesn't care. He's totally lost it. Yeah. Like, and I think it's just like this guy is like he has fallen, and like who is to blame here? Can you really blame Bishop? Because it's like, look at the situation that got him there. The lack of schooling, the lack of talking to people. His mental health is clearly like this guy is depressed, bipolar, like all this stuff, and no one's giving the attention that he needs to the point where he has to resort to violence to get what he wants, to get affection, to feel power, to feel good about himself. So they go on the top of I love when they go into that party and they're playing, I Just Killed a Man. Love that song. It's a good song. And just them fighting on the rooftop. And you get like a Lion King moment kind of thing. Where Q's like they're fighting and they're fighting. And somehow Bishop goes over the roof. Yeah. And Q's trying like holding on. He can't reach him. He can't grab him. Can't pull him up because he's too heavy. And then that's how Bishop dies. He slips and just goes, nah, into the darkness, into hell, into the very pits of hell. He's going down to, okay, in the pits of hell. And then when Q looks up, there's the people from the party watching him, and that's when he says, "Man, you got the juice now. You got the rage. You got the. I mean, how would you describe the juice?"
See, here's the thing. I actually have been taking notes every time we mention what we thought the juice was. So right off the bat, I thought that it was influence. And what I mean by that is like the influence of like just your name, right? Like they were talking about like how the Blizzard was not famous to anybody except for them. But when they see him on the news, they thought they were acting like it was a celebrity for a second. So I thought that's part of it. Power, obviously, like power over people, like power over like in physical, mental, whatever it is. Money is really the driving factor behind most of their motivations in the movie. So I was like, that could be the juice. And then obviously the gun, right? So I feel like juice being a literal fluid, like in the sense of what juice is kind of why you don't know what the juice is. Like it's supposed to be this like fluid moving thing. Like anything can be the juice, right? It's just like kind of how we say like something is cool, dope, whatever, however you want to say that, right? In this case, the juice can be something of that caliber where it's like, all right, yo, that's the juice right now. That's what it is right now. Like that's popular right now. However you want to say it, like that's just, it doesn't have a definition, and that is the definition. It's ever changing. So that's why I was like, I can't say what it is. But if I had to put one term, I would honestly say the juice was about power.
Yes. So. But I don't think, because like you got the juice now and the movie ends. Mm-hmm. The movie ends on just a free fade of the eyes, and which that was been the key. When Tupac started going crazy, a lot of paying attention to these eyes. Like they're bugging out. Like you see the whites of the eyes. You can see how crazy this guy is. And I love how we don't get any resolution. Steele does live. He gets shot, but he does live, which is good for him. I like Steele. He was just a goofy guy. And I like how the credits going. You hear a popular DJ gets a mixtape of Q's and plays it on the radio. And I'm like, man, it's almost like irony kind of thing. It's kind of like sad a little bit that this is like he's never gonna taste that flame because he's probably gonna go to jail for what happened. But now he could claim self-defense, but then like he knows what happens to Raheem, so he's like he would have to tell.
Well, I think what would happen, I mean, in my fan fiction, if Steele does live, I feel like Steele would be able to testify, like, nah, Q tried to kill, Q did all of this. Which, if you have two testimonies, then I feel like that would change it, especially because he's like, yo, you tried to kill me because I knew this. I feel like the cops would take it a little bit more seriously. Plus, again, there are people that get paid way more than you and I to actually do forensics. So
Well, they would get in jail for robbing. They would actively
be an accessory to a prior crime, but for some of the murders and stuff that are going to get him serious time, I think he'd be okay. But I'm not a lawyer. I don't.
Oh. Yeah, because I forgot. It was like when the Puerto Rican gang and Bishop were having that spat and the crew left off, the police did come and then kind of scattered. So when they scattered, Bishop kills the leader just like that. Like no fucking like they didn't think about it. No, like point the gun was like pat 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 dead. Like It's just once you have that power, once like that gun, a gun that got they should have never gotten the hands of these people. And it's gun violence that we're kind of still seeing today. Like I almost like that's what's so scary about it. Now, I think we exhausted our conversation of this film. So now, people, we're at the portion where we discuss about if this film holds up. Because here at the Look Back, we're not gonna rate a film based on how good or bad it is. We're rating it based on how well it holds up, based on story, based on characterization, based on like technology, blah blah blah. And it's just in search of good movies because I think great films can stand the test of time. So, Frankie, does Juice hold up? Yes or no?
Okay. Outside of the time period stuff that dates it, okay, which again, that's something we go to every movie, but that doesn't actually really throw me off because people still use vinyl records nowadays.
Yep.
That was the biggest hang up I had, that and the use of landline phones. But overall, man, as a story, as like for teenagers coming of age in the inner city, I feel like it does still hold up. This is a story like, yeah, if it were to come out right now with modern technology, probably a little bit different, but I think that it does because it tells the story of these four kids, but it also shows how four different backgrounds and then how you interact with your environment, how you turn out. And I feel like in any time period, this movie would do well because put it in the 80s, it's like you could do the crack epidemic like New Jack City, put it in the 60s and 70s, you got civil rights and you got, the big recession that happened in the 70s, and then put it in the 2000s even. You've got like, especially in New York, like, I mean, 9/11 notwithstanding, New York has gone under so many cultural shifts in like the last 20 years. Like every time period, like parenting had to be different and had to be right. And then it gets into the mental health and then it gets into the over policing. It gets into the stuff that was going on at that time. So yeah, I really do think that, especially now, because of some of the stuff that is going on, when we are talking about mental health and we are talking about, what people say is over policing, what people say is XYZ, right? I think that it really does because it brings back like, okay, to me, everything was like pressure. And like, if you don't know how to handle that pressure, then you snap like Bishop, you overdo it like Raheem, you never really live up to it because you don't feel it like Steele, or you're like Q to where you were always like in your own bubble. So I think it does, man. I had a really good time with this one, rewatching it, especially now as like an adult, and just knowing what's happened, like some of my friends that went down certain paths. It's really as you get older, you appreciate it a little bit more, especially from the Black cultural perspective, like we've been talking about throughout this. It really shows I'm going to say the final evolution of New York that we're going to talk about this season. But we've gone from 70s gangs to 80s and slash 90s gangs to now 90s where there's no gangs because the police are a kind of a gang in and of themselves. So yeah, I thought this movie was great, man. I would say it holds up. I know you're going to give your point, but yeah, it was a great cultural film too. Definitely the Juice haircut was popping when I was in high school and in college, and I almost got it, and I talked myself out of it because
and that hairstyle came back for a little bit too.
It did.
I liked how Bishop's haircut was looked like a bishop from a chessboard. Yep. Okay, so last time, like when it came to New Jack City, I said no. because I had a lot of issues with that film based on their characterization, especially the cop storyline, and maybe because of how like goofy the gangs were in that one. Well, this one feels authentic. There is an artistic eye. I think Dickerson is definitely a better director than Mario's Van Peebles. He has a story that he wants to tell, and it's clear as day. And especially because its authenticness of this New York setting, I think it does a better job with portraying the desperateness and the what I'm trying to say. It shows it to me. It becomes all very authentic and not goofy, over the top. Even though there's like one scene where Tupac is like overdoing it. Other than that, I loved everything about this film. I thought the performances were good. I bought into the 4 main characters. I felt for them, especially as it's a tragic story about this city that has failed them, and that they feel like this is the only way that they can succeed is through violence. And violence to getting money, to hustle, which we've learned in other films, other ways to hustle. Shaft, hustle for Private Eye. You had Nino Brown using the crack situation to get him all the way up. And now we're seeing violence through robbery, through gun violence, through a place that feels over policed, that feels like they are in prison in themselves. There's no where hip hop music kind of spoke to that. I mean, think of NWA, you think of Ice Cube at this time, Eric B and Rakim, EMPD, like they're speaking of on this truth. I mean, I just quoted The Message, which speaks about this kind of inner city life. Like this isn't shocking. It's shocking to see it visually, because they're just like, wow. And then it's shocking to know that there's cities like this still today. Like there are it's funny how this is not funny. It's not funny. When I'm saying like this is supposed to be America, but when you look at where these inner city at, it looks like a third world country. It looks like a third world country. This film holds up. This film holds up better than New Jack City. New Jack is campy fun, but this one tells a serious story, has a very serious, its directing is very well done. Tupac's first acting before I watched this movie, I was like, wow, Tupac had a future in acting. He could have killed it in some roles, man. Like, I mean, LL Cool J, yeah, he's all right actor. Busta Rhymes, yeah, he's all right actor. But Tupac, like this performance is just like, wow. Like it's something that stuck with me. Like when I think of Juice, I think of his performance. Yeah. But it's a film that I would definitely revisit again. So yeah, it holds up. And it's a film that you should see. So if you ever never thought about seeing Juice, see it. Because it will shock you. And it's a lot of relatable stuff in there too. I mean, with the family life, the friendship, mental health, gun violence, over policing. It's a film that speaks to today's problems in a 90s style. And because of the music and because it introduced you to the soundtrack and stuff like that, it feels authentic within the story. It's not them trying to it's not trying to be like, hey, buy this album. Hey, look at this, look at this bop. Yeah, the music is a soundtrack to what is going on. It's not to distract, it's to enhance the storytelling. Boom. So, folks, that is 2 likes. That's a 2 yes for It Holds Up. So our rating system here, when 2 critics give a film 2 yeses for holding up, it gets reanimated. We put the juice back into Juice, and it's now been alive and should be talked about, should be spoken of, should be getting multiple releases, should be released in theaters, god damn it. Fuck.
Yeah, no, they could definitely drop Juice right now, and it would be a banger, especially this time of year where there's no good movie. Well, but there's no I don't want to say bangers out right now. You got one, but I mean, everybody's probably seen it if you can survive 3 hours.
Right. and just to introduce to Tupac's acting. Like he is more than a gangster rapper, and he's an activist. He's an actor. He's a great artist. Probably he's my favorite hip hop artist of all time. Like to me, he's the best. He's the greatest of all time because of him always pushing forward the culture, him speaking on, and him using his rap as a way of pushing the culture forward. I would say yes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And he died so young, so it's like it puts and the person that always spoke about how he was going to die young, like he knew that was going to happen. So it's like, wow. And the fact that I made it to my 30s when Tupac didn't, just shows I want to carry his legacy as long as I can. So, any final words?
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, if I don't know if you noticed the detail, everybody that Bishop killed, like actually killed, had their hands up.
Yes.
Raheem did, so did the man in the store, and then Steele had his hands down, which is why Steele lives. And then I had to actually go back and watch it the second time I watched it this past week. But the Puerto Rican guy gets shot, like basically his hands are up, but he gets he gets shot and kind of goes out. But the way he falls, apparently, like if you look in the background, he actually fell just like that. And same with Raheem. I don't know if the old man fell down like that, and then obviously he isn't able to kill Q. But I think that was one of the reasons that Q got away, because it shows that Tupac was a bad shot, and he basically needed you to be at point blank range, not fighting back. That was one of the things I took. But final words, man. If you haven't seen this movie, please go watch it. It is really, really good. It has, like I said, all those like young stars in it. You got Omar Epps, who's, I think honestly this is probably his second or third best movie that he acted in. Like, I'm not saying this is overall his third best, but some of the other people in the movie give really good performances. But yeah, dude, this movie is definitely up there for me. I really was glad we got to sit down and talk about it, because it shows Black culture, and we've seen kind of the evolution of that through 3 different movies across Shaft to 71, and then to the 90s. So better part of 30 years, and we've seen three really different movies.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed this one, man. I'm glad we finished the trilogy up. I'm excited for everybody to see it. If you have anything to say, if you've seen any of these 3 movies, have any commentary on the discourse we had, because I think tonight was a great conversation.
Yeah.
About culture. So please let us know, because we love to talk about that kind of stuff. Clearly, we spent the better half of the review just talking about the greater culture of this. So that's something that we love to talk about. So
yeah. So so if you want to join the conversation about Juice and talking about the culture and stuff like that, or you have recommendations for films we want to see. I know that I need to get to Boys in the Hood. I need to get to Menace to Society. There's a lot of films that speak on the culture that I haven't seen before. We need to get to my other favorite Tupac film, Above the Rim, which is another really good one too. But the only way we were able to continue this is for your support. So please subscribe, hit that notification button, because Saturdays at 6 p.m., as the season goes on, you'll get a new episode of The Look Back. I am your host and the necromancer of film, Joshua, always joined by my buddy Frankie, and we will see you at the movies.